Welcome to the Happy Mindset. Today's episode is episode number 80, and today's episode title is called Confidence, Buddhism, and Law of Attraction. So today I'm joined by Andy Shepherd. Andy is a confidence coach. On today's episode, he talks about some of his story. He shares some of the journey he's gone on so far. So he talks about Buddhism. That comes up in the conversation, something that interests me. And he talks about how he got interested in Buddhism and how that actually helped him to keep following his path. Another thing that me and Andy have in common is a love of language. So Andy was living in Brazil for quite a while, where he learned Portuguese. He found an English language school there where he's teaching English to students. And something that Andy noticed was the confidence that this is something that I've always felt that it's the emotions that can get in the way of somebody really excelling at a language. When I was learning French, that was one of the things that I felt was something that I needed to grow through, was the anxiety of speaking a different language. And he as well seemed to have picked up on that, the importance of feeling confident in those situations, leading to more interactions and getting better at the language. So I enjoy talking to Andy. He talks a little bit about law of attraction as well, how that has helped him in his life. And I enjoyed talking to him, different perspectives, different experiences, and hope you can get something from it. Thanks again for listening, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Okay, so thanks for joining us today, Andy.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me on your show.
So my first question for you is, who are you and what are you doing in the world today, Andy?
Okay, who am I? Well, my name's Andy W. Shepherd, and I'm a business motivation coach. So I work with teams, and I work with individuals as well. But what I'm setting out to do is to harmonize teams to make life more fun in the work environment, because having been seeing it from both sides, with a mother having her own restaurant, with me working in corporate, and then using my mum's ideas in my own business in Brazil, I see that in corporate life it's not much fun and people are really having a pretty miserable time. Not everybody, there's some good companies as well, but the ones that aren't, I'm there to help them. And sometimes the boss doesn't know what to do to get the team unified, and the team doesn't know how to work with each other. And so this is a new project and a new direction that I'm working in.
So you mentioned that Brazil. What took you to Brazil?
Well, it was two things. On the surface, it was because I met a beautiful woman that I fell instantly in love with. It was literally love at first sight. I remember I was in this crowded place. I was at a Buddhist retreat, and the whole room stopped, and all I could see was her. It was bizarre, and I just followed my heart and went to be with her. But also, it was to escape from a very, very stressful job working as a computer engineer.
Okay. And wait, you were in a Buddhist retreat as well. How did you get into that?
Another woman. Basically, I was having I had a woman that I was like completely besotted with and having real difficulty with the end of the relationship. It was so I needed to find a way out of the pain and to find other ways of feeling good, without looking for an external source of happiness. And the place where I was working, there was a guy, we used to talk a lot. When I was drinking, we used to talk in the pub. I don't drink anymore. And he shared with me a lot of ideas, and he said, you think pretty similar to me. And he handed me a tape, and the tape was about Buddhism, and that's how I got into it.
Hmm. Do you remember a key thing that you learned from Buddhism that helped you to move forward in your life?
Well, the one principle, there's so many layers. I'm like such a different person because of it. I learned how to control anger, to be able to snuff anger out, because anger is like a spark at the beginning. And so with my ability to meditate, to become aware of what is going on in my mind, I could notice the anger start as a spark, and a spark is really easy to put out. When it's a full blown raging forest fire like we're having in America, unfortunately, it's out of control and really difficult. So that was really, the mindfulness is probably a key thing. And the first principle of Buddhism to me is always keep a happy mind. So if you're not happy, then work at, it doesn't mean you got to start doing drugs or something crazy like getting drunk or something like that. Whatever you're doing, it's got to be good for you, good for others. And so going from that premises, always keep a happy mind is something that I really work towards achieving, and
Mm,
everything else falls into place then.
mm. So, and in Brazil, did that come after that then, when you're in the Buddhist retreat, or how long
The
after?
Brazil came after it, yes. I must have been uh, I did live in Buddhist communities quite a lot, and I must have lived for 2 or 3 years in a Buddhist community before I went to Brazil. And I actually lived for a while in a Buddhist community in Brazil as well.
Okay. And in Brazil, like, you started teaching English, I think. How did that come about?
It was just out of necessity. I didn't want to get back into computing again, and I just wanted to get out of the stress. I could have worked for a big company called Embraer. They make airplanes over there, really good ones, and they were using DEC computers, and they would have loved to have had me there with my experience. But I just wanted a change of pace. I could
Mm.
have made a lot of money. My life would have been very different, but the quality, always keep a happy mind, it wasn't going to make me that happy. And the easy thing was teaching English. I'm a native speaker, as they called me. And so people want to learn from a native. They want to learn from a British guy or an American guy. So it was just easy to get a job.
Did you start learning some Portuguese as well while you were there?
Oh yeah, well, it was necessity. The city that I was living in, when you went out, it was very rare to meet somebody who spoke English. If I went to Sao Paulo or to Rio, then it would be different. But where I was a really small city called Taubaté, in between. It's like halfway between Sao Paulo and Rio. So it was a necessity, and I did things the hard way. I didn't study much, and I just learned just by trial and error and picking it up. So yeah, it was quite an interesting challenge.
So, like, what were some of the key things you learned about learning from trial and error when it comes to languages?
Well, the first thing is I would not, if I did it again. I know as a coach we don't like the word if, but if I was to do it again, I would definitely study, and I get a teacher and get a one-on-one tutor or something like that, because there weren't classes for that I could go to. I mean, if I could have gone to group Portuguese, I'd have definitely done that. That would have been ideal. I'd have had other students, and it would have been brilliant. But yeah, I would have gotten a one-on-one teacher because I just wasted so much time. My grammar is terrible. I can speak fluently, but I'm speaking kind of pretty badly because my grammar's wrong. And yeah, I really made life difficult for myself.
So, did you learn anything about confidence when you were teaching and learning Portuguese in Brazil?
Um, yeah, I think the confidence really came more when I was presenting. When I was pretty scared. I remember the first time I did a conversation group. I got three guys and that I was teaching, and the owner just said to me, "Don't worry about it." He said, "Just go there. You're just going to have a conversation. You don't need to do anything else. It'll be fine." And I remember he did a number on me because at the time I looked a lot like Hugh Grant. So he walked. I didn't know he was walking behind me, and I think he got a copy of something like Notting Hill in his hand, or one of the videos. It was probably before that. I can't remember. And so he was like, I thought I was just going in on my own. He said, "Oh, I'll give you an introduction." So anyway, the introduction is he's pointed at this picture and said, "Who does he look like?" And it's like,
Okay.
I don't know. That really didn't help my confidence at all. I was feeling pretty embarrassed as it was and nervous. Yeah, it was when I was doing presentations to in front of a public and getting on radio and video. I did that in Brazil, and I had to learn ways to get confident and to because I was absolutely scared, witless. I really, really was. I would be sweating. I'd be feeling terrible, and here I am talking to you on a podcast, and this is easy peasy for me. I'm just talking to you, Dennis Murphy, my friend, and that's it, and going for it. And that's what I'm focusing on. I'm not thinking about the hundreds and thousands and potentially millions of people who could listen to this at some point.
Hmm. Okay, yeah, that's a good way actually. You're thinking about like how would I speak to a friend if I'm giving them advice or if I'm just having a conversation with them.
Yeah, and I think that's the important thing. You just focus on that. You don't focus on the bigger picture. I think doing it a lot has helped me. But if you want specifics of how I do it, would that be interesting? Would you like me to share that?
Yeah, do you have any? I think you talked about some physiological stuff as well, like some simple stuff for somebody who wants to do something, but they're anxious, their anxiety and all that, all those emotions are stopping them from doing it.
From giving presentations.
Yeah, presentation, for example. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, there's things that I do is I've learned some techniques from Tony Robbins, and that's not going to help anybody because you need to go to one of his events to do that. Um, I learned some techniques where I can just instantly get myself into state. State means that you're either low state is depression, high state is having rock solid confidence and feeling really good. So that's a technique that I go that's kind of advanced. But I do affirmations, which really help me. And I just do it. I just keep repeating and repeating and repeating one affirmation that really helps me. It's about finding an affirmation which is going to help you to do the presentation really well. At the end of this, if I can give my contact details, I'll share this with anybody. I'll share the full mantra that I've got. Well, not affirmation, sorry, it's not a mantra. The other thing that I do is to other good things that you can do is to just imagine that you are another person. So imagine you're a confident person. Imagine that you are whatever presenter that you want to be. So if you're in sales, for example, and you want to become confident, then maybe visualize that you're Grant Cardone. I don't know if in the UK is very popular, but he's a big guy over here in America, or whoever. Is he popular over there? Have you heard of Grant Cardone?
Yeah, I've heard of him. Yeah, it depends what you're into, really. Like, I've heard of his books and like the things he's doing.
The 10x, right. So yeah, I mean, it's all whoever you're into, so whoever inspires you. And the reason I said that is because a friend of mine, it's a long story but keeping it short, he wasn't confident with women, so he just imagined he was The Rock and he became an instant success. He used to walk like him, talk like him, move like him, and it worked. So this kind of sounds ridiculous, but everything sounds ridiculous until you put it into practice. And that's the key thing. It's not about listening to something. It's everything. If you want to get success in life, you want to get confidence or whatever you want, you've got to put stuff into practice. The other thing that I think is really useful is something we call dissociation. This is a technique that we use in coaching where you just stand, kind of get out of your body. So you're kind of watching yourself speaking, but it's not you. You're kind of like the observer. So this is called dissociation. And then you don't. It's kind of a weird concept, maybe, but if you try it, then it's kind of easier. You're not. It gets you out of your body, gets you out of your emotions. So those are a few tips off the top of my head.
Mhm. Do you have any like physiological tips? Because I know with my own life, I think when I'm breathing better, I actually feel calmer, and when you feel calmer, more in your body. you actually appear more confident. That's kind of my belief.
Right,
But do you have any
right.
things like that physiologically that could help somebody? Just simple stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you just do the opposite of being depressed. If you're depressed, you've got your head forward, you've got your head, you're slumped over, you're breathing shallow. So
Mm.
the opposite of that. I mean, there's something in NLP called the triad, where the words, what you're thinking, the words you're using, your posture, and your movement will give you the results of how you're feeling, or um, and so on. So basically, if you're sitting upright, for example, or standing upright, shoulders back, breathing deeply, then this is going to make you feel more. It'll make you feel more alert, and it'll make you feel more confident. And when I think about this, this is probably why, well, no, definitely why in the armed services they get everybody to stand upright, because
Mm.
you automatically are going to feel confident. Now, the only issue is that we go, well, I don't want to be look like I'm in the military, so we don't do it. And you need to. It's really, well, you don't need to do anything, but I recommend it because you're going to switch it, tap into that great feeling of confidence.
Mhm. When did you decide to transition from teaching to coaching?
Well, that kind of came about when I was in difficulty with the school. There was a point where I was going to lose everything. There was like a 2 year period where I was working like 14-hour days. I was teaching for 10 hours, which is a killer, as any teacher would know. Doing working 6.5 hours, 6.5 days a week. And it's just too much. And I'd wake up in a cold sweat thinking I'm going to lose the school. And if I lost the school, then I loved being in Brazil at that time. I really loved it. And I just did not want to go back to the UK. And I wanted to stay there. And I thought, that's it, game over. Lost all of my life savings because I put everything into it. I'd sold my house and put all the money into the school. I'm going to lose all my friends, lose the sun, and end up back in rainy England. So that got me to look, and I thought the one thing I've not worked on is my mind. I'm doing all this physical stuff. I think I'm pretty intelligent, pretty smart, but there's something missing. So I started working on my mind, and I'd been given a film called The Secret, and that was really pretty impactful for me. And then I did a search on all of the people who were in it, and so I started studying them. And
Mhm.
one name that kept coming up was Tony Robbins, and I thought, I've heard of him. And I started studying him, and I just totally clicked. And that was I changed. The school changed and became a pretty almost an overnight success with the techniques. And I thought, well, I really want to be, I've always wanted to do something meaningful. It's always about doing something meaningful and impactful. And I thought, well, teaching English, good life was the logo, put on the logo of the school. And I thought, well, I can do much more than this. I can make much more of an impact by coaching people, by giving presentations and so on. And so that's what got me into that.
Okay. So like when you started working on your mind, like what sort of things did start changing in your life? What sort of things were you implementing?
Well, the biggest thing that changed was I could see that if I really did believe in law of attraction, and I really did believe that um, it is that kind of like from Think and Grow Rich, that if whatever the mind can perceive and the mind can believe, you can achieve. I think that's Think and Grow Rich. I get confused now. And I thought I can't argue with that. I've been studying Wallace D. Wattles as well and stuff like this, and I really felt a connection with law of attraction. And I just went, well, if I really start putting out there what it is that I want out of life, it's going to happen. And that was a big turning point. So then it wasn't about the physical stuff of the school. Then it was about, and people think, oh, this all of this law of attraction stuff is all woolly, and in America we call it woo woo, and it's just a load of nonsense. But I think the thing that we need to recognize is that when we're got something in our mind, the mind is a supercomputer, and basically it's more powerful than we realize. And it's kind of like the mind is connected to, okay, I'm going to go woo woo here, I'm going to go kind of over the top. Am I okay? Keep going? You want me
Yeah,
to
if you want to.
calm it down a bit? Okay. So as you put out this energy of your intentions, it's almost as if the universe, which is everything around you. Remember, the universe is the people, is cats and dogs and animals and buildings and all of it. It's all part of it. It's
Mm.
like, as you've put in your intention, the answer's going to come to you. And your mind is going to be tuned into that frequency of what you're desiring. You're focusing on it. So when the answer comes of the path that you need to tread, the way, the direction you need to go, because you're focusing on that, you're going to know, and you're going to follow it. And that's it. It's it kind of like the path unfolds in front of you, and that's kind of what seems to be weird to people. They're thinking, well, how the heck can that happen? Well, you don't need to worry about how it can happen. Just go try it, and try it with something simple if you want, and or try it with something big. But if you really believe it, whatever you're going for, and and the important thing is you need to know that you deserve it. And that's another component, because we've got a lot of limiting beliefs in there, which can strip us down and say, I want £1 million, you don't deserve it, is this subconscious, and it'll sabotage us all the way. So sometimes we have to start with smaller goals and just work ourselves up to the big goals. And the it's not about, the reason that we don't do stuff is because we've been taught that you have to know the path. You have to know the way to do it. I want to open a restaurant. Okay, great. You want to open a restaurant? Do you know all of the ins and outs of how to do that? No, I don't. Oh, well, don't open a restaurant. Well, no, that's not the answer. It's like, I have a strong desire to open a restaurant. Great. Set the intention, and then the path will unfold. You'll meet somebody who wants to be an investor. You'll meet somebody who knows how to do a restaurant. You meet somebody who wants you to partner with their restaurant and is in alignment with with what you're thinking, or whatever it is. It just magically appears. It really does, which is incredible.
Yeah, I think intention is very powerful. Sometimes I found in my own kind of life is that things will happen in unexpected ways, and that you'll learn a lesson from something that you mightn't necessarily have wanted to learn. Have you had any situations like that where you're following your path, something comes in the path, you actually learn a lesson that helps you move forward in the path, but it was a difficult lesson to learn?
I think that happens all of the time, for sure. I mean, I've had tons of difficult lessons happening to me. Um, it it's just constantly happening, and it's like the difficulty is when we're kind of fighting against it. we're, Everything is an opportunity to benefit us, to grow, to become a better person. And that can be a real challenge when there's something truly dreadful that's happened to us. But we have the freedom of choice. This can either be the worst thing that ever happened to us or the best thing. And so you got to go into it of looking and saying, what is the lesson here? How can this benefit me? What is the good in this? There's two sides to everything, two strong motivators. One is pain and one is pleasure. And unfortunately, a lot of the time, pain is the greatest motivator. So we kind of move away from pain, and we do everything that we can to keep away from it. But actually, it's a really important part of human development, because it's like if you notice this, something happens in your life and the things that just get worse and worse and worse and worse because we're not doing anything about it. And to me, pain is, or difficult situations are, it's like an alarm bell going off. And the
Mm.
alarm is going to get louder and it's going to get louder and it's going to get louder until you do something about it. So a specific is is a challenge to look at, I suppose. One pain point that just comes to mind because we were talking about it was one girlfriend that I couldn't let go of. I just I just loved her so much. It was just something, I don't know, it was an experience I'd never had with anybody so powerful with this person. And it took me 2 years to get over her. And it's like, well, the only thing that I knew was that every day when I woke up, I felt the pain of her missing out of my life. And I just knew one day that pain would be gone. That's the only thing that I knew. I just knew one day the pain would go. And that kind of motivated me to go forward. But this really prepared me for Buddhism because that helped me to find the answer of why I was, and this is a Buddhist term, so attached to her. What was that attachment? And what is love really? And where does love come from? You know,
Mm.
and unconditional love. So that terrible experience, that very painful experience, was really, really good because that gave me the ability to understand how my mind worked on a much deeper level. And if I had never had that relationship, I would not understand things on the level that I do.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, no, that's it. That's thanks for sharing that. That's I think that's something that we all kind of go through in different forms as well. So it's encouraging to understand that like we can understand that and help us move forward in life with that understanding as well. So
Yeah.
when it comes to the business, like how do you help team? How do you help create an environment that's more fun at work and more connected, I guess, for employees to work together and to listen to each other?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff that I do. One of them is give presentations. This is kind of new to me. This is a new direction, but one of the presentations I give is on confidence because confidence is just something that is so important to us on every level. It's, I mean, okay, we not all of us are going to have to give presentations and be on TV or radio, but you know, most people are going to have to give some kind of presentation at some stage, even if it's in front of in a meeting, and just having the confidence to deal with our co-workers or customers or irate customers or whatever. We need confidence in that. How to make the workforce a happy place would be just the one question. It's like, you know, my desire is to find a boss who is open to trying things differently and realizing that with a happy team, it's going to impact his bottom line in a positive way. Because at the end of the day, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, that's what you need because you need to keep your business going. So if you've got more money and you've got more security. So the easiest thing is like whatever people are doing, it's like, how can I do this and make it fun? You
Mm.
know, there's power in questions. And so you could say, well, it's impossible. This, what I'm doing is absolute drudgery. It's horrendous. Well, okay. Well, you've just that's a question in itself. You're kind of saying, well, why is this horrible? You know, this job horrible, and then you give a whole load of answers to it because that's what the brain does. The brain basically is a computer which is going to answer questions. That's all it's doing. All the time it's answering questions. So we need to put good questions into it. So if you're putting a good question, and the good question is, how can I make this fun? Your brain, your wish is my command, will start delivering great answers.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. And the questions are powerful, right? Yeah, but I think sometimes, I guess, from my own experience, it's been you're so used to putting in bad questions because you weren't aware of the importance of questions to begin with that it initially it takes a bit of time to start adjusting that. I think that's been my experience, where it's like it's a bit easier now for myself to ask better questions, so I understand the importance of it better now. What you're saying there is like how you do anything is how you do everything. That's the principle there, I think.
Yeah, and it's just a habit. You say you just got to get into a new habit. We've all got the habit of asking wrong questions. It's like, why does nobody like me? Well,
Yeah.
because you're fat and ugly and you're smelly and you're vegan. I mean, why would anybody like a vegan, for God's sake? And you're British. We're British. It's like that, I mean, I'm saying this because I'm living in America. It's like, it's
That's the
your
magic
brain's
that's
to come
there.
up with all sorts of nonsense.
What you've
Sorry,
done,
Dennis.
what you've done there is kind of displayed it. It's like you ask a question and your brain automatically has so many different threads that it can go through. All of that could have been complete bullshit, like for all you know. So like if you ask a question that's empowering, then you've got the other way where it's like, well, actually, no. Initially, it's like, it can be quite difficult because the pattern is so ingrained to like focus on the negative that initially, when you're shifting more towards the positive, those initial thoughts aren't there just purely because you haven't had the habit of asking the right question. But like, I
Yeah,
think when you start shifting, it becomes like it's the pattern shifts, and then I think like it's neutral. Like in Buddhism and stuff, you realize that the world is neutral, but for the meaning you give it. So if you start asking better questions, you get better answers, better results. That's my understanding. That's my premise I'm going off of now.
yeah. No, I mean the truth of everything in Buddhism, they call it emptiness. There is a nothingness to everything, and this is kind of like a really weird concept. It's like, how can there be nothingness? This emptiness, and it's like we put values on everything. We decide if something's really good or really bad, and
Mm.
it's things are neutral. There is no good or bad. It's just what the concept of what we put onto it. But that's kind of going, I don't know how useful that is to anybody who's listening, because that's kind of really deep philosophy. But at the end of the day, it's, we need to, the focus is on making things, turning it around and making things more positive. And you're saying, you mentioned the word difficulty, that really is resistance. It's not difficult, it's resistance, and the more you resist, then the more we perceive difficulty.
That's true. Whatever you resist persists, I guess. Yeah.
As well, it will do. Yes, that's right, because there's the lesson in it. So it's like, you've not learned the lesson, we're coming back.
Yeah.
You can't get away from us. We're gonna haunt you. You've got to learn this lesson. You don't have to if you don't want, but we'll be back tomorrow.
Yeah.
So it's your choice. Ignore us, we'll be back. See you soon.
That is how things work, right?
Yeah.
I've enjoyed talking to you, and hearing your journey as well, like the stuff you've learned and what you're doing today as well. It's inspiring. It's always inspiring to hear somebody who's turning things around and like focusing on making a positive impact as well. So thanks
Thank you.
again. So where
My
will people
pleasure.
find you online actually if they want to check you out and know more about what you're doing?
Probably the easiest way is I created a website. It's easy to remember. It's andythecoach.com. And if you go there, I'm at the moment, it's set up so that you can actually get a free 60-minute session with me, where I will work on your number one, whatever your biggest goal is, the one goal that you really, really want to work on. And I'll work with you on that, and I'll make it so that it's something that you will be really motivated to do, and I'll kill the procrastination, which is stopping you from doing it. How does that sound?
That's good. Kill the resistance, man. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, kill the resistance. Yeah, that's it. Stop resisting.
Yeah. Cool, man. Thanks a lot, Andy, and wish you all the best for what you're doing as well in the world today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on the show. It's been great.
My pleasure. So cool. Until next time, have fun and enjoy the process.
Awesome.